Okay, 7.4 is going to get into division properties. So far we've used the following properties, which is your zero exponent, which means that anything to the zero power goes away, leaving us u to the fourth. We've learned that the negative exponent means it wants to move to a different spot where it's happy, so u to the third over v to the second. We've learned that the multiplication property means that we take these two numbers. Actually, if you get lost and you see both of these, just remember the parentheses means multiply. So since we're not going to multiply these, it means we add them. And this would be u to the 4 times 5, which is u to the 20th when you wrap that up. So those are the four things we've seen so far. Today we're going to look at the final power property, which is based in division. And there's actually two, but it's just really one overall, but we just kind of expand something else. The division property, when you see this on your work, is going to ask you to expand it and simplify it. That means that there are 7 x's. The bottom means that there are 3 x's. Then it's going to say cancel and simplify. So what we're looking at here is if there is an x on top and bottom, it would cancel, which means that there would only be left 4 x's. Which when you simplify that means x to the 4th. I'll do the other one before we discuss the pattern, which you probably already see or should kind of be able to infer at this point. On the other one, it should be 2 x's on top, 6 x's on the bottom. If these 2 x's cancel, we're left with 1 over the 4 x's. And again, anytime there's nothing on top, you have to put a 1, which means your final answer is 1 over x to the 4th. Now, where do you think this is coming from? This is what I see. If I have 7 x's on top, 3 x's on bottom, I'm actually doing x to the 7 minus 3, which is x to the 4th, which is what you're seeing here. Here, if I do top minus bottom, I end up with 2 minus 6. 2 minus 6 is negative 4, and negative 4 means it should end up on the bottom. So again, that's what you are looking at when you do your work today and you have to show your work, is you are subtracting your powers when you divide. Just like it makes sense, if multiplication is addition and they're opposite operations, then division should be subtraction. The rule for division property is as follows. When given 2 powers in a fraction, subtract the exponents. Again, top minus bottom, always top minus bottom. So how can you classify the exponent rules when everything gets together? I'd say with all the different options, you must be sure to study the foundation of each rule. Again, imagine expanding the powers and think of what happens. So I could think of this as 2 x's and 4 x's, which to me makes sense to be 6, 2 plus 4. I can think of this as x to the third 2 times. And if I expanded that to be x to the third, 3 plus 3 is 6. I can think of this as being 4 x's on top, 2 x's on the bottom, and I'm canceling out. And to me, canceling out would be like subtraction. But you need to make sure those things are in your system. That is why I keep recommending that you practice and ask questions and do what you need to do, because otherwise it's going to be an issue. Now, the power properties also work with fractions. It's still distributive. It's just that you make sure everything distributes to everything on the inside. So this becomes x to the 4 times 3 over y to the 3 times 3, which is x to the 12th over y to the 9th. If you had to show your work, that's how you show your work in terms of those boxes. You don't have to on all of them, but again, for those you do, that's what you'll do for your multiplication stuff. In order to be most effective and efficient, follow the list of steps. So if anything, the first thing I would do is, and you want to write down this 1, 2, and 3, because again, that's going to help you with this stuff. But the first thing you want to do if you want to figure out how to do any of these, I'm talking about any of these from sections 1 through 4, distribute any floating exponents first. So if you see any of these things, distribute it. 4 to the 5th, x to the, sorry, I'm writing crazy. 4 to the 5th, x to the 15th, y to the negative 10th. And then from there, you can look and see that y wants to be moved, and you can go from there. So again, if you see any floating exponents, I would do that first. Second, once you've got rid of your exponents, move anything that's unhappy. So what I would do here is say a to the 3rd wants to be on the bottom, a to the 5th wants to be on the top, b to the 4th wants to be on the top, b to the 5th also wants to be on the top. And from there, you at least can make a better decision, which I think we'll work out one or two of those before we quit. But again, in this case, you would be subtracting 5 minus 3 because you're dividing. But because both of these b's are together, you'd actually be doing b to the 4 plus 5. because those two are together. So like I said, that's where I said you need to make an instinct, because there's a lot of decisions that you need to be ready to make. And then the third thing you're going to do is follow your train on multiplication and division properties, kind of like I said right here. There is no straightforward way. These won't always be nice and neat. You are going to have to get dirty a little bit and make some mistakes. But again, the more mistakes you make, the more you'll be able to kind of work through what's going on. So let's go through a few examples before I let you get to your homework, and we go from there. So there are no floating exponents. Each of these things has an exponent, so that's first. The second thing I said is to make everybody happy. So I'm going to write everybody where they're happy. So 3 to the second wants to be down here. 2 to the second wants to be down here. And I'm just doing number, variable, variable, variable. So m to the third wants to be up top. M to the second wants to be on top. N wants to be up here. N to the seventh wants to be down there. P to the fourth looks like it wants to be here. P to the second looks like it wants to be here. So again, that's where your practice comes in. Now let's put everything together. And what I mean by that is I'll put everything that's on top together with everything on top, everything on bottom together with everything that's on the bottom. So that means I have 3 plus 2, or 5 m's up top. 1 n, 2 p's. 3 squared turns into 9. 2 squared turns into 4. 9 times 4 gives me a 36. So I'm just simplifying this a little bit. N to the 7th, p to the 4th. Now I can do some work. And what I can do is I can go into the 1 minus 7, because that's what that's going to be, is n to the negative 6, which means my n should be obviously on the bottom. How can you know that? Because there's more n's on the bottom. 1 on top, 7 on the bottom means there should be 6 on the bottom. I can do the same thing in my scratch area here with the p's. P will go to the 2 minus 4, which is a negative second, which obviously means p should go on the bottom. And I can see that because there's more p's on the bottom. So my answer is m to the 5th. Because that's the only thing left, because remember those go on the bottom, over 36, n to the 6th, because that's going to be on the bottom, p to the 2nd, because that's going to be on the bottom, and that'll be your final answer. Again, there's no way to do this without getting dirty and without making a few mistakes, so just make sure that you are ready for all that. And these aren't the only questions on your homework, but at least this is showing you the toughest part of your homework. On this one, I said the first thing you want to do is distribute the exponent. So it becomes x to the 12th, y to the 9th, z to the negative 6th, x to the negative 9th, y to the 9th, z to the negative 3rd. Now that I've got all the floating exponents taken care of, I'm going to move everybody who's happy or unhappy to where they want to be. So x to the 12th stays up, but x to the 9th moves up. Again, stay up, moves up. Your y to the 9th stays here. This y to the 9th also stays here. This z to the 6th moves down. This z to the 3rd moves up. Notice I'm not worried about how organized it or how nice it looks. I'm just organizing my parts so I can see where everybody wants to be. Now, because I have double x's on top, I add those up to make x to the 21st, y to the 9th, z to the 3rd, because that's as far as that's going to go, with y to the 9th and z to the 6th on the bottom. I don't think I need to do it, but I would be doing y to the 9 minus 9, which is y to the 0. What does that mean? It means both of these cancel out, because pretty much you canceled 9 y's on top and bottom. For my z's, I would do z to the 3 minus 6. Notice how I'm doing this in the scratch work area, which is z to the negative 3rd, which means that z will go on the bottom. So what that means is, in the end, my x to the 21st stays there, my y's are gone, and my z goes on the bottom. That will be my final answer there. Again, you're going to have to fight on that. But when you ask me your questions, make sure you show me your work. Don't just send me something saying I don't get it. Show me what you did, even if it's the most terrible try ever. I need to see what you did on paper. So you are going to be working through 3 more sections of material in this chapter. Because none of them require knowledge of power properties, it's likely you'll forget how to apply these rules. My best advice is that you study the notes and practice them from the first 4 sections throughout the rest of your time in Chapter 7. So if you have time, I would continuously look at the notes from 7.1 through 7.4. That's really the toughest part of this chapter, is remembering all those silly rules and knowing how to apply each one, especially when we won't be looking at it in 7.5, 7.6, or 7.7. And then all of a sudden you forget about it, the test comes up, and you do a terrible job. So just make sure you're keeping up with all that stuff. And again, if you are going to ask a question, make sure you show me your attempt. I don't care how bad it looks, and just show me all the work that's included. Don't try to hide it. Again, you're supposed to mess up at this point, so that's how we get better. Good luck.